Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited because I get to hang out with my friend Harry, who I've known for about 15 years. Harry and I have worked together, and Harry's on the podcast because he has a bit of a different worldview to me. And that's what makes it so awesome. Harry, what is your worldview?
It's a very deep and wonderful question. I am heavily agnostic, I think, in like a weirdly Socratic sense. Like, I don't know is the best answer that I can come up with. It is a heavily Christian ethical worldview, and I'm kind of piecing the, I guess, factual reality of it together in the sense of, I think there's a lot of wisdom in a lot of institutions. Well, no, but yeah, a lot of ideologies that we've developed over the centuries. I'll probably put the Christian ethic at the apex there. But in terms of, in terms of, did this man who was also a god called Jesus, die on the cross, and then what, and then was he then resurrected 3 days later? And is this necessary for us to have our sins forgiven? It feels like, I'm not using this term pejoratively, but it feels like a wise mythology more than it does a statement of, how history / reality unfolded. But I want to be wrong. Like, I'm not an atheist in the sense of, like, I'm not in any way arguing that, this is detrimental for people, or it's damaging. But yes, that's the 2-minute summary, I guess. Yeah.
It makes perfect sense what you're saying. So what I'm hearing you say is that you like the benefits of the Christian worldview, which is that we look after people. Like Jesus said, love God, love people. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
That produces good society and good family, and especially for you as a dad.
Yeah.
And I'm also hearing you say you would question the validity of, was there really a God man called Jesus?
Yep.
Did may or may not have died on a cross? It's pretty easy to argue he died on a cross, but did he come back to life?
Yes.
Wander around, demonstrate to everyone he was the real deal. And then did he literally ascend while a whole bunch of spectators were watching him? You're saying that's hard to swallow. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, exactly right. And I guess in a sense, is this somehow cosmically necessary for humanity to be alleviated of their sins? Like one weird thought process I have is, like, if we come across aliens one day, like, what did Jesus die for their sins too? Like, I don't know, like, as in, I don't know, if one day, I don't know, we find, like if monkeys become more intelligent, or if at some point we relate to cows or other non-human animals as if they're somehow human enough that they have a soul, what did Jesus die for their sins too? Like, was somehow, were they incorporated in Adam and the fall? And I don't know, like it feels like a wise mythology, but I'm not using that term like it's a fiction. Okay, like you might tell, like often you have to lie to tell the truth, in the sense that reality is so infinitely complicated that, okay, if someone asks you what is love, well, you can try and give a detailed scientific explanation, and you can, explain how, oxytocin and all these things work in your body, or you can just like make them see a movie, or like, I don't know, Romeo and Juliet, for lack of a better example, which is a story, it's a lie, but it gets to the heart of the truth, and like it simplifies the infinite complexity of reality in a way that is helpful.
Yeah, you're saying, is it all just a parable?
Essentially, yes. And by the way, it's really fine if it is, and it's a great and powerful parable.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and it's a little bit Jordan Peterson-ish as well, like in what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. Okay, so I guess the question, like, if there are aliens, did Jesus die for them? I literally was thinking about this about 7 to 10 days ago. And I remember thinking, gee, I'm a goose. Who else thinks about this? No one thinks about this. And now you're saying that you think about this. So that helps me feel normal. Thank you, Harry.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Okay, so, and where I landed on that after thinking about that for a while for me is, I'm like, well, if there are aliens, well, that's a question to ask, if there are aliens. But I actually don't see that there are aliens, even though, who knows? Okay, like supernatural beings masquerading as aliens, sure, I find that very easy to believe. Okay. Man, we are down a rabbit hole. Okay. So coming back to it, it's like you said before, you are wholeheartedly, no, your exact words were heavily agnostic. You said, but you'd like to be wrong. In what way would you like to be wrong? What are you hoping? would turn out to be right later.
Right. Well, okay. It's a hard thing to accept as reality in some sense because, okay, everything you do is like recorded or like, as in there's a sense of, if the Christian worldview is in reality correct, as opposed to just like a good parable. Let's go with that. Then there are certain things that make it like scary, and you have like the adequate fear of God kind of thing, and like an awe and respect sense. But at the same time, it's kind of cool. Like if you have an immortal soul and it somehow lives forever, and you get to see your ancestors and your descendants one day, and you get to live in this state of love, whatever that is, and you're raised in body and spirit. Like there's a sense in which, and if there's actually a father out there, like a father type figure out there that loves you and cares for you and wants a relationship with you, and if the creator of the universe is like a conscious entity like you and I, well, that's great. Like if it was, yeah, yeah, I want this to be real in some sense. In another sense, it like kind of scares me and alleviates my responsibility a bit if we're just a speck of nothing on a rock somewhere and it's cosmically irrelevant what we do. But I like the idea of our lives being cosmically relevant. I like the idea of the divine actually exists in reality and isn't just a bedtime story. I don't. Again, I'm not saying anything besides like in a bad way. Yeah, but yeah, if it's more than just a good story, a very, 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 very good story, a wise parable, that would be awesome.
Why would it be awesome?
Well, because because then well, first of all, like your consciousness is eternal on some level, which provided you're not in hell or some equivalent, feels great. Like I don't know that there would be a point where I'd want to stop being conscious. Like I'd want to stop living. Like, okay, I get that at some point, you're sick and you're dying, and yeah, like at some point you reach an age and it becomes, there's maybe more suffering than it's worth. But yeah, like eternal life is a pretty attractive, feature or entity. But more than that, like even in the life that we're living, like the general love and connection, which is, I guess, central to Christianity. It'd be cool if that was the way the world was built fundamentally, as opposed to, hey, we've iterated some kind of social experiment enough times and it just helps humans to believe that you should love your enemies. And so just do it because it somehow helps you and makes everyone's life better. But, there's no like substantive element to it. Like it's just a good, and I love stories. Like I love stories because they center your perception. Like it's like you see reality through that filter.
You get a compass. You get a bit of
Yes.
purpose, and
That's right.
I get that. That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
You talked about if there's no God, you're not accountable for anything. You're actually just a speck of dust. It doesn't matter. You said if there is a God, you said that would be wonderful because it's almost like part of us are craving for that dad figure to walk us through life because we actually don't want to face every challenge on our own.
Yep.
And I experience that daily.
Yep.
And you're like, well, that would be wonderful. But then I also saw you go down the path of, but then again, if there is a God, then I'm accountable for my actions. And I don't really want to be caught out the full-time whistle ignoring him, is sort of what you were saying. What do you have in mind when you say that? Like, what's your perspective, which is agnostic?
I see a parallel with my sons. So my 7-year-old Kyros, I've realized that often, like sometimes it's just normal childhood misbehavior. Like, I don't know, he wants to climb a tree. I say no. He climbs the tree. Like that kind of thing.
Immature.
And then
it's kids.
Yeah, like it's a problem, but it's not. And often I would have dealt with it. Many times I would have dealt with it by saying, Kyros, get off the tree, or being firm with it, or putting a consequence in place. But I realized something that's weirdly effective, not always, but like it can be weirdly effective, is giving him responsibility. Just finding a job that I genuinely need doing, and he's probably going to mess it up, but just give it to him. And he can say, and it's not pack up your toys. It's not like do something, fix your own mess. It's like, hey, Baba needs you. Can you please? I think it was like, can you bring me something? Or I don't know.
Tribute to others is what the value.
Exactly, man. Yep. Exactly. And it's a sense of ultimately responsibility. Like it's being, I think and look, I only have sons, so maybe it's more for boys. But I think we crave responsibility because it gives ultimate meaning to our lives. And in that, I see it in my sons in a natural way, but I think God does something like that to you in the sense that, okay, if there's a God, well, there's a whole bunch of pluses and minuses to that, but ultimately you have responsibility. There's a sense of, no, what you do matters. It doesn't matter. Like, I have weird for questions, like, if there's an asteroid coming to Earth, and you're about to die anyway, is it okay to shoot someone that you hate? Which is a very silly thought process. But my feeling is yes, even though I can't justify that on a cosmic speck of dust sense. Like, that still feels bad to me. Like, you're going to die anyway. It still feels, because there's a level of intent and hatred, like there's a level of will that's somehow a problem.
So you're saying even from a perspective of, even from just a speck of dust, if there's an asteroid going to wipe us out in 3 hours' time, it's still not helpful. It's not useful. It's not right for me to go around taking out my enemy. That's what you're saying.
I'm pretty sure that's wrong. But it doesn't. But as in, what I'm saying is, it's not the end goal that's the problem. It's the.
Why would that be wrong? Like, if someone's agnostic,
Yeah.
then they wouldn't. If agnostic, let's imagine the truth was to be agnostic, which is a bizarre way of saying anything, because like the truth is not knowing the truth. But pretend for a moment that agnosticism or atheism was the truth, right?
Yeah, you're like acknowledging radical ignorance.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
So let's pretend there is no God. Why would it be wrong for you to go and take out your enemy 3 days or 3 minutes or 3 hours or 3 months before the asteroid hits?
Yeah, I don't know. No, I genuinely don't know. And I'm not just being like, I'm just saying I don't know, because I genuinely, okay, well, I listen to a lot of Alex O'Connor, who's he talks about a lot of, like, he's an atheist, but he talks to a lot of religious people, and he's an ethical emotivist. And I'm coming around. Like, it's basically, we're saying maybe morality is just some weird hidden emotional thing in us that we're just justifying to try and make it like a logical structure. But part of me really doesn't like that, because
it doesn't sit well, does it?
No, it seems both more objective, but also it seems more taught. Like, I can see a universe where I was raised in a different way, and therefore I would not feel like that was wrong. Like, it's fine to think about things, but when the rubber hits the road, what do you do? Like, what habits do you build? How do you live your life and affect those around you? In fact, Michael, you're like this. I find myself doing weird things, like I'm praying with our kids before we eat. And I don't know why I'm doing it in a deeply intellectual sense. I'm not sure why, but I mean, maybe I justify it to myself as, okay, well, if it's a wise mythology, just, like it's like a better version of Santa Claus. Like, I'm not saying any of this pejoratively. Like,
no, we're here.
Yeah,
clear.
But maybe just that. But I feel a very strong urge to pray with our boys. Like, there's a sense of, be grateful for what you have. Don't take it for granted. Sitting down, being together, making sure we're centered, saying a prayer before meal feels valuable in a way that I don't really understand. It doesn't really make too much sense if no one's listening.
Do you feel driven to do something that makes no rational sense?
Yes.
Why is that?
Okay, I think it's what I said. I think it's your subconscious simplifying the infinite or near infinite. Like, cognition feels so limited that almost, like, if your gut, if your intuition, if your left hemisphere, what are you going to call it, or right hemisphere, I forget which one. But if your intuition tells you, if it tells me to do something and it's strong enough, I've learned to shut up my rational brain.
So if we go back to you praying with your kids, I wonder if part of you is trying to justify yourself to, go, oh no, it's just socialized into me, when really, maybe it's not. What if it's not? What if that's actually your design? Just a crazy thought. What if you are designed, one, to have a conscience and care about things? What if another part of that is you are designed to want to raise good kids? But if that is true, well, that actually matches right back in the first page of the Bible. Adam, Eve, go and populate the world, like raise great kids, live life, And what if you praying with your kids, this is a crazy thought, I never thought about before, is that you're actually designed to raise kids who are connected to their creator, just like you're connected to your creator. Like, what if? Could any of that be even slightly feasible? Or feel free to tell me if you think I'm missing the mark by a mile.
No, no, that's perfectly feasible, and that would be great.
Why would it be great?
Because then the relationships that we have are a microcosm of a bigger cosmic relationship. Like, you're basically saying everything's love. Well, like, you're saying something like the relationships that you experience and the love you experience is, in some sense, the most real and meaningful thing in the world, which is very big. No, this idea is very attractive to me.
Why is this attractive? The idea that we are created with a sense of right and wrong, that we're created to want to raise great kids, which is, I can see how wherever you land, that's going to be, that's part of it. But we're created to want to raise kids that are connected to their creator, because we don't want our kids missing out on that.
Yes.
Like, what is it about that makes you go, yes, that sits well, if it does?
I don't know. Okay, maybe iterability. Like, maybe a sense of, okay, like, I can be very into pleasure and, of any means, and cars and materialism, whatever. But then that's not iterable. Like, I wouldn't want someone else to be like that, and I wouldn't want my descendants doing that, because that's going to end badly. And I think that gives you the emptiness of, after you've done that, then it's like, okay, you might have enjoyed the journey, but you didn't enjoy the destination. Like, you'd want something. And okay, maybe iterability feels like a good thing in the sense of what you're doing is sustainable. Things that you can see value in the journey and value in the destination are great. Like, something where you can, okay, I love my kids, and I raise them as best I can, and I work as hard as I can, and I contribute to society, and I enjoy the whole process. Like, I love the whole idea of, God loves a cheerful giver. I don't think there's any value in the sense of self saying, oh, I'm like, you self victimizing. I don't think that there's any value there. Like, you do something because you want to do it, and you think it's the best thing to do. Otherwise, don't do it. Like, So you do all this in a cheerful giver kind of sense, and then you get to the end and you set a good example for your kids in a way that, well, if they just copied the model, that would be a good thing to iterate. Like, it would end well, like almost like the promise to Abraham of, you will have many descendants. I think God's saying something like, I'm going to give you the blueprint to iterate, to have lots of good kids and good kids and good kids. And it's something like, don't be lazy and sit in your tent and have grapes, and go out and have an adventure. And that matters, I think. Like, it's not, there's a sense in which if what you're doing, kind of like the Kantian a categorical imperative, or, do unto others as you would have them do to you. Like, if what you're doing is something which others, if they mimicked you, would be something that you want to happen, and for generations, really, well, that's a good thing. Like,
It is a good thing, but it doesn't explain why you feel driven or propelled towards praying with your kids. There's something in that, and I don't know what that is. That's more than just iteration or iterative. There's something hardwired there that says it is because you love your kids, you want the best for them, you're praying with them to a God that you're not even sure is there or not. I don't know what's there, but something cool is happening there.
Okay, but just to push back, and I don't know if this is true, right? But if we were in ancient Babylon, I might feel the exact same urge as to pray to the Zoroastrian.
I think you would. You definitely would, right?
Right. But then we would look at it, okay, say, but then, I had a time machine and I come back to now, and I would look at that back then and say, look, it's really cool that you had that, because there was a morality and whatever, and you wanted to raise your kids with that sense of belonging and gratitude and so on. But obviously, the infrastructure, the mythology was just a good story. What I'm thinking is, I think it's conceivable that if I had a time machine to go 2,000 years in the future, I might look back on this and be like, well, in the same way that, I'm pretty sure that Zeus and Thor and the Rainbow Serpent and Zoroastrianism are just good mythologies that led people to good life. It's weird to think that Christianity is somehow uniquely different. Like all these other things are like good mythologies that help you live your life, but not ultimately true. Except for Christianity, that's not only a good way to live your life, but also happens to be actually the way reality is fabricated. I don't know that is the like a realistic opinion to take. I think
it's not mathematically easy to justify, is what you're saying.
Yeah, like I think it's probably another really wise mythology, and probably wiser than the others in many ways. And like like we can get into value judgments about different worldviews, but so I think like even the idea of amartia in Greek, um, it's just an archery term for missing the bullseye. Like the idea is anytime you sin or you do the wrong thing, well, okay, there was the bullseye and you hit somewhere else. Like it's not as black and white as like there's almost one right thing. There's one bullseye, and there are like an almost infinitely many ways to not hit it. And we almost always / probably always do that. It's just how close we are to the bullseye. Are you like just a little bit wrong, or are you, or did you shoot the arrow, in the complete wrong direction?
Okay, what you're saying makes sense. Could I bounce some ideas? Is that all right?
Yeah, go.
So, what I'd love to do is go. What you're saying makes so much sense on so many levels, and then what you're saying makes it's harder for you to justify intellectually, even though it feels real.
Mm.
Like the right and wrong factor. That's hard to intellectually justify from most agnostic perspectives, but it's clearly real and you experience it. Mm. Wanting to pray with your kids, whether it's in ancient Babylon or whether it's today, it's like, I believe that shows that there's something inside us this is very Christian worldview, right?
Yeah.
It's like there's something. So what you're saying before, like this is more for my audience, as in people who have my worldview, Harry, than you. Yep. But if you have a look at this, it's like it's in the book of Romans, 1st chapter, written by the Apostle Paul. Mm-hmm. And excuse the harshness of it, but catch the meaning.
But I should preface this. I know the Bible relatively well.
I know you do.
Like I actually go to church every Sunday because I love the chanting. And like I have a monk brother and a nun sister, so like I'm very like
you're living the dream. I get it. Okay, so this is not unfamiliar for you, but for people who are listening to this podcast, it's like what jumps out at me is that Harry's describing these things like conscience and wanting the best for his kids and these things that are hard to justify intellectually, but that he feels driven to do. It's like, pour out the wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against the godlessness and wickedness of people. Like all of us want people held accountable for what they do wrong. Okay, that's obvious. But who suppress the truth by their wickedness. Mm-hmm. Okay, since what may be known about God is plain to them. So it's almost like, Harry, since what may be known about God is plain to them because God has made it plain to them. Now, it doesn't say the next bit. It doesn't say because it's plain that Jesus died on the cross. That's not what it says. It says that since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, okay, the fact that he's eternal, the fact that he has a divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what's been made. So that could be mathematics, the fact that there's an ordered world, or it could be from the fact that there is love, like you mentioned before, or whatever, so that people are without excuse. Although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God. Okay. Now, what goes through my head with this, Harry, is I feel like everything you've said is so compatible with what the Bible is saying here. And I'm not saying it proves Jesus rose from the dead. I'm not saying that. But the very way you describe your worldview, even though you're also trying to be as open as possible and trying to do things that make logical sense for you as someone who is agnostic, there's so much in it that just, it's so from the Bible, Yes. What goes through your head about that?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It really resonates. I guess when I hear stuff like the wrath, but I'm not triggered with any of this wrath of God stuff.
No, I know you're not, because I know you. And plus, we've known each other 15 years.
Yeah, this is right. And I don't actually understand. Okay. And I'm not like, okay, when I read passages like this, I can't see the creator of the universe, some all-knowing, all-benevolent universe, actually punishing people in the way that we punish our kids or our criminals, or like in a conscious sense of I will harm to you and therefore I will restrict your capabilities or I will hurt you in some way. I think it's descriptive of the nature of reality in the sense that, okay, you can choose this path, and if you choose this path of self-gratification, pleasure, hurting other people, non-connectedness, then like no cosmic entity is gonna like go out of it. Just the way reality is structured, you're gonna suffer. Like if you like, and it's not. No one needs to intervene. Like no agent is actively punishing you here. It's just the way the universe is built. If you give, you will receive. Like as in, if you selflessly give of yourself, it's like this. The way reality works is you're just gonna have a better existence. And if you just look out for yourself and you don't care about other people and you just do what you think is best in your own narrow, selfish way, you're gonna have a worse life in the short term, even if you think it's actually good.
A man reaps, he harvests what he sows. If he sows to himself and his own desires, which is what you were talking about before, then he will harvest destruction. But if he sows to the spirit, as in God's spirit, he'll harvest eternal life. So that principle you're talking about is obviously compatible with
Yes, and that's right. And the wrath of God is something like your own consequences for doing dumb, selfish things, as opposed to like some Zeus type figure striking you with a thunderbolt for annoying him. Like I don't think it's that. I don't think it's. I just can't see why the benevolent, all-knowing, all-loving creator of the universe would go around punishing in the sense that we use the word punishing. I think just reality is just like the Bible explains the way reality is structured in the sense of if you do these things, like, you know, the wages of sin is death is a beautiful phrase from
Romans.
One of the epistles, Romans. Yeah, like it's that. It's like if this is where you work, this is what you get. I think it's a description of reality. Okay, it's a natural law as opposed to a human law. You know, we use the word law in two different ways.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And people know what you mean. So it's just the reality of you reap what you sow. So what you're saying makes sense, and it is also compatible with, say, Hinduism or Buddhism, reap what you sow sort of thing, right? Mm-hmm. But what about the day you die? Like, let's imagine, okay, because this podcast is What the Heck is Grace, okay? Mm-hmm. Let's imagine you and I are driving home, and the reality is, in a lot of ways, you're a better person than me.
I don't think so, but okay, but go on.
Well, let's just assume that for the story's sake, right? Yep. Let's assume you're a better person than me. You and I are driving home. I drive a bit recklessly. I wipe out our car. You and I are dead in an instant.
Right.
I would be someone who has said, you know, I want my sins forgiven by the fact that Jesus, when I say fact, well, how biased is that? Yeah, the Christian worldview is that Jesus took away my sin.
I understand.
You would be then accountable for your own sin.
Right, yes.
So then let's imagine you and I both run up to God, and God's like, okay, hello, Michael, blah, 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 whatever was true for Michael. Hello, Harry, I hear that you wanted to be accountable for your own sin. What's the story? Like, where do you sit at that point? Because natural consequences in real life are obviously true. Anyone can see that.
Yes, I understand.
Right. What would be your approach when the creator of the universe is saying to you, your time's obviously up?
I feel very dumb, first of all. I feel like, oh my God, Harry, you idiot. Like, they'll right all along. So yes, you know, if we do reach the pearly gates at some point, I'm going to feel very dumb first.
Why dumb? Like, because you're not one by nature.
Well, dumb because I was pretty sure, well, I am pretty sure, and I have been since I was 12, by the way. I've been, you know, agnostic for a significant portion of my life. I would feel dumb that I dismissed this idea that turned out to be true about how reality is wired. Like, I'm pretty sure when you die, I'm pretty sure that's the end of your consciousness.
But either way, in this scenario, who would know?
Yeah, fine. Yeah. So we arrive at the pearly gates, or whatever. God says, Harry, you know, you're being called to hold yourself to account or whatever. I don't know what to say. I would feel gobsmacked at just being so wrong, first of all. And then, I don't know, I just like ask for forgiveness / give the appropriate amount of humility for how, you know, like insignificant / stupid I am in the little that I did and the many that I did wrong. Like I would not have words. Like I don't know. Like there's no, like if that happens, well, I'm semi screwed. When was that? I don't. Yeah, like I don't know what I'd do. But it'd be something like that. It'd be awe. No, awe is the correct.
It would be awe, but it would also be
Well,
hoping that God does not fulfill what he says he will do if we find ourselves in that spot.
Yeah, I weirdly can't see a benevolent, loving creator of the universe. It doesn't make sense that they whatever would put a person in a hell not of their own making. Like I think hell is lost from the inside. Like if you're in hell, you did that to yourself. Like I don't think someone puts you there. I think in a real sense, you choose it by your actions, or you actually choose it because you just think it's going to be helpful. I can't see the kind of God in Christianity actively putting people. I think I don't know, and maybe this is wrong. Maybe I just use this to sleep at night, and maybe that's not at all true. But I'm pretty sure if there was a God, he more of a like, this is how reality works, as opposed to like I think like the idea of like you would have to have hatred for that. You'd have to have a sense of like not love.
Maybe. See, it sounds to me like you are theistic, almost theistic, though the Christian God is like one that you, to be honest, are not into at all, because it's like for you find it easy to believe that, oh well, okay, if I was going to be wrong, it would be that the God is going to welcome everyone, be all inclusive, etc. Like that makes perfect sense. Where it gets into a spot of trickiness. So the theistic God that you would want to believe in
Yes.
is a completely separate and completely different God from the God of the Bible. So if that God that you would want to believe in is real, the God of the Bible is definitely not real. Or if the God of the Bible is real, then the God that you're imagining him to be is it's just chalk and cheese.
They're different gods. Okay, right. So you reckon there's very much a fire, brimstone, judgment. Okay, so how is that compatible with God is love? Okay, and I say this as a parent because I've experienced it more recently. There are moments where I'm very firm with the kids, and I set a consequence, and it happens, but I'm pretty sure I'm doing the right thing in the sense of it's coming from a place of love. Like I'm willing their ultimate edification. Like
So you and I obviously have different perspectives on this. If I put forward what I believe the Bible says about this, it's like no one says you need to accept that as valid or not. In fact, if we're honest, your nature would not be to accept that as valid, because we've already established that the God that you believe in is very different from the God of the Bible. So it's like where I think as Christians we become a bit unstuck with this is that we believe in a God who gives one free choice, because to not give free choice is to treat people like robots, and that's just not how we're designed.
Yeah. By the way, there's this new movement around arguing against free choice.
Arguing free choice.
Yeah, a lot of atheists will argue against free will.
All right.
And I think it's weirdly, I don't know, it doesn't sit with me at all.
Well, they've got free will, so if they want to argue against free will,
then that's right.
Okay, we're good.
Yes.
So it's like, no, I'm with you. Like, bring it on. Like, sure, if we apparently don't have free will, that would be an interesting worldview. Okay, but so the idea that you have been given free choice, but that choice is to accept and walk with God and to have sins forgiven, and the very thing that you, to be honest, you crave, where you say in the earlier part of this session, you were like, I want this to be true. I wish Christianity was true. It would be comforting and healthy if it was true, or at least not necessarily wishing Christianity, but that God that you imagine to be true, right?
Yes.
And then you've got, free will, where it's like, he's not going to force us to hang out with him. Otherwise, he's completely broken what love is. So the idea that a God who loves us would become a human, walk as Jesus, suffer everything we suffer, a lot more, die. Where was he for those 3 days when he died? I hate to think what he was up to. It probably wasn't fun. for someone, either him or the enemy, who knows? But it's like, and then come back to life and then be like, hey, I sorted it for you. For me, I don't find it incompatible that a loving God would do that and then be like, but you can choose me or you cannot. What I find hard, though, is that you and I, if we die in that car accident, your time for making decisions is over. Like that, I find harsh. I'm not saying I don't believe it. I do. I wholeheartedly believe it. But it's clearly a harsh scenario.
Well, yeah, but hold on a second. So you're saying that somehow when you die, your free will ends and then you just continue on the path of whatever. See, but okay, I don't know how I could have consciousness without free will. And I don't even know if I want that consciousness. Like whatever the afterlife looks like.
I'm not
I'm
saying it's
pretty
not free
sure-
will. I'm just saying your decision period is done. It's like my decision period of when I get married is pretty much over the moment I get married. I mean,
Yeah,
after
okay,
that,
I understand. It's a line in the sand and you just walk that path.
because that's
Exactly.
what the Bible describes, and that's why it would say, well, like those verses that you know from when you're a kid, John 3:16, for God so loved the world, like he loved the world this much, that he gave his one and only son, so that whoever believes in him won't perish but have eternal life, which is a very low bar. Or it's also like it's like God, it says in the book of Hebrews that man is destined, I'm pretty sure it's Hebrews, to die once and then to be judged. So we've got a whole period of time between now and when we die to make that choice. But it is harsh as heck, if we're honest, to be like, what? Do you mean I run out of time to make this decision? What the hell? I can see how disillusioning that might be.
Well, I don't. Okay. All right. To quote another parable, there's a parable where Jesus has, sorry, Jesus says that, God has the sheep and the goats and he separates people and he says, you come into the kingdom of heaven because you fed me and you clothed me and you visited me when I was sick. Lord, when did we do this? Well, when you did it to the least of my brethren, you did it to me, and vice versa with like the goats people. With the goats people, if they're then like, oh, okay. Well, if they at some point realize, oh, okay, well, that was wrong. I shouldn't have done that.
Yep.
I'm now going to start helping people and acting selflessly. It'd be something like the prodigal son coming back. I can't see God saying something like, you know what, too late, you made your bed. It doesn't feel compatible.
I hear what you're saying.
I think it'd be something like the prodigal son. And by the way, it might be super hard. Maybe like when you've gone a certain way down the evil path, you've like gaslit yourself into thinking that somehow only you can look after yourself and you stop asking for help and you're like, pride gets in the way and you start lying to yourself, which I think is weirdly insidious. I think lying, Dostoevsky says something like the worst thing you can do is lie to yourself.
We lied on
in the Brothers Karamazov or something. Yeah, but he said it's weirdly, so I think it's so powerful because it's this thing you have. Okay, it's the worst thing. Anyway, this is a bit of a tangent, but it's the worst thing because you have a sense of ultimate control over that. Like lying to yourself is ultimate agency and self-consciousness, and you are removing your capacity to self-correct. You're
in a wheelchair. You're cutting off your ability to do what you can currently do.
But you're doing it quite conscious. Like it's a very conscious action, and it's very much.
I think it's an assumption it's conscious. I think a lot of people would do that without realizing they do. Otherwise, why would you lie?
I don't realize the consequences. Yeah, no, that's right.
But if we rewind a bit, it's like,
yes.
The long story short of it is, it sounds like the issue you have where you go, this is where it stops being reasonable for you, is the idea that there would be a full-time cutoff. Now, where I would go, well, I actually don't view that as unreasonable myself because I was pre-warned that there would be a full-time cutoff. So if someone ends a soccer match at 90 minutes, I get it. There was always going to be an end. But if someone doesn't tell me at the start of the game there's going to be a full-time whistle, that's when it becomes unfair in my perspective. But I can see why to you it would feel unfair, unreasonable, and unloving. You'd be like, well, why did there have to be an end time?
Right. Okay. So the question, and as well, like I'm being very dramatic here, right? But the I don't know, reductio ad absurdum argument is something like, as soon as someone has done the most altruistic act of their life, it is somehow morally correct to kill them at that point.
Why?
They're doing them a favor.
Why is
well, because then they're like optimally good with God. So you're doing them a disservice in not killing them because they're going to screw up at some point.
I hear what you're saying. can I bounce an idea off of that?
Yeah.
That's very much a Simpsons worldview. Because the Simpsons gave us this idea that God weighs up our good and evil at the end of our life and evaluates us that way, which I think is a Muslimish view. But according to...
It's ancient Egyptian.
And lots of others, right? The idea of good and bad. So the idea that someone is at their optimal there is at their best. According to the Bible, we're never at our best because we're descended from Adam and Eve. Therefore, sin is already ingrained in us. But the idea that I'm at my best at the age of 10 or 30 or 55, it's like it defies the fact that it would take one sin for me to not be in heaven if I was accountable for it. Because that's the whole point of Jesus coming, taking our sin away, because our sin and God are incompatible. We could not go near him if we were. So the idea of there being an optimal time, it's like that optimal time, there is an optimal time. If I believe the Bible, the optimal time, it would be the second I was born, but even then I've still got a big problem. Without grace, without forgiveness, without Jesus taking my sin away.
Okay, sorry. Obviously, I'm not arguing that we kill Nick.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah, I'm arguing that, or that we kill someone once they've done the
once they've won a big award. I get it. Or
once they've okay. Say someone jumps in front of a bullet for someone else. Okay, just let them die. They've done the ultimate selfless act. Don't resuscitate them.
That's a very reincarnate. That's a very Hindu view. Oh, I mean,
yeah. And I'm not arguing that, but I'm arguing that if I guess the argument is if death was the end point of, you can gather evidence for why you want to be with God, I think that would follow logically that that's a weirdly good thing.
Why is that?
Well, because you can't do anything to change it. So I don't know, are you not just giving that person the best chance to be with God? I don't know. Yeah, and the other thing is, okay, even after death, why would God strip our free will of not wanting to be with him? It feels like what you're saying would mean that we have somehow less free will after death than before, in the sense that now we can choose not to be with God, or we can choose to be with God. But for some reason, when we die after that, our free will is stripped from us. You can not choose one or the other, and you're kind of stuck in your final state.
I don't think that is what I'm saying, because there is that parable where Jesus described the rich man and the poor man Lazarus.
And
after the rich man died, he said, "Oh, no, I don't want to be here. I can't.
There's a chasm between us.
Yeah, can you warn my brothers?" So I would. The only reason, the thing though that I think you're alluding to, that I think matches what the Bible says, is in the book of Revelation. It says there's no sin in heaven. Okay, there's no sin, there's no death. So I think it's not that I lose the capacity to sin; it's that there's no sin there. No one in there. No one would want to sin when they're there.
Right, you're just so close to God, you wouldn't choose anything else because you're not an idiot.
The knowledge of good and evil is something that we wish we didn't have, but we have it. But then that gets redeemed by the fact that Jesus gets rid of the sin, and then in heaven, we're back to a restored relationship with God. We don't need a savior at that point. That's been done.
Sorry, say more about this. You said something interesting. You said the knowledge of good and evil we wish we didn't have.
We wish like hell we didn't. We have that because Eve fell for a deception, and Adam stood by and watched it happen.
Yeah, but hold on. Why would we not want the knowledge of good or evil?
We'd want the knowledge of good, which we would have had on day one. They're
oh, I see. We don't want knowledge of good. Okay, sorry, I understand.
Yeah, it's there are probably ways of being evil that I have never even thought of.
Yes.
I'm better off not knowing them.
Yes.
It's
all right, I understand.
It's but now we've got a smorgasbord of what we know, whereas back then they didn't have that. They only had, don't eat that fruit.
Right, I understand. Or a naivety of, I understand.
I'm a bit on his hand, but yeah. If your belief about God that doesn't match the Bible is true, you're in no error. But all that does is up the ante, up the stakes of how important it is for you to make a conscious choice and to pursue wherever the evidence leads you. You might find the evidence leads you completely atheist as opposed to agnostic.
No, yeah, but this just feels like a version of Pascal's wager.
It does.
This just feels like, and the obvious counter argument is there. Well, okay, there's a spaghetti monster that if you don't bow down and worship him, you're going to have eternity in hell. So on the ridiculous chance that this might be correct, you should worship the spaghetti monster just in case it's right, because the consequence of infinite hell is worth any cost to avoid. Like, yeah.
I think we're talking chalk and cheese, though. The spaghetti monster, you and I know, has zero evidence.
Yeah, fine. There's evidence.
As opposed to someone who it would be claimed he rose from the dead, the evidence that he rose from the dead is that thousands of people chose to lose their life over it. It's a, or that the people who claim to be eyewitnesses are the very ones losing their lives. Like, that's pretty powerful.
Yes.
But it's still not a fact. We're talking about evidence, not fact. So at some point, though, I think that if you and I are driving home tomorrow and we have a car accident, I think at that point, possibly part of you might be going, I wish I'd actually pursued this harder to find out. But because you haven't felt like there's a time limit, there's no rush. Whereas if the Bible is true, there is a time limit. Though if the Bible's not true, there is no time limit.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying.
I think it's one of those hard things. Like, people say it takes a lot of faith to be a Christian. I think it takes just as much faith to be agnostic and a lot of faith to be an atheist. I think it's just faith is built on evidence. How much are we pursuing the evidence, or how much are we deceiving ourselves, like you said, or lying to ourselves about?
Yeah. Just which axioms do you want to adopt without?
Which axioms do you want to explore even? Like,
explore, yeah.
Because if I don't go and explore the Muslim faith or the Buddhist faith, am I just self-deceiving? Like, but it's all not the point. The point is, if there's a time limit, that's a problem for someone who is agnostic. If the Bible is not true, or if what the Bible says about God and Jesus dying for us is not true, you have no time limit. You have nothing to be worried about.
A God that would have a definitive end to death in the way that I think you're describing, where, like, if we both die, then I haven't done enough to build a relationship with God and profess that God is my savior, and so on, and then I'll be punished for this in the afterlife in a way that isn't reversible. That feels like an anthropomorphism of human. Like, it feels like that's how we would act. Like, it feels like an anthropomorphism. It feels like to me, and it might not be. It might be the structure of reality, and fine. But it feels like that's something that we would put on reality. And look, maybe it's how the
I think you're saying that is potentially a human invented thing because it matches how we parent. It matches how lots of other things.
I think so. And maybe it's a wise mythology, and maybe it stops Columbine from happening. Like, maybe it stops people from doing terrible things, then ending their consciousness and feeling like, I'm going to get away with it because, there's no me left, so I'm just going to, not be conscious anymore, is what it is. Maybe, it feels like a mechanism to avoid that rather than a depiction of reality, I think.
It could be true. And what you're saying is evidence. So again, that's you looking at the evidence, and it's like, is Michael blind to the evidence? Maybe he is, maybe he's not. But it's like, it's definitely worth thinking through. It's like, this has been the best podcast episode we've had, I think, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Because it's not every day that we sit down and pull this stuff apart. But if you look at what this podcast is about, what the heck is grace?
Yeah.
From an agnostic perspective, it's like, I don't know how. I think if I was agnostic looking at the things Michael's saying now, I'd be like, that actually doesn't feel happy news. That feels like unhappy news. Whereas the gospel's so-called good news. The good news that you don't have to be accountable for your sin. If you want to be, sure. But you don't have to be. And so I think that's where it gets a bit hard.
No, I'll really. So you reckon agnostic people would not think of it as good news?
I don't think that you do it as good news that there's a full-time whistle that happens, at which point you need to have made your choice, but I could be wrong.
Yes. No, that's true. I don't. Yeah, I don't view it as good news that I have until death for my actions and thoughts to align with, the Christian God. Otherwise, I'm in permanent hell. That definitely is not good news.
That's not good news for you in the short term.
But I don't even know that's what the Bible says. I don't even know that's really what the Bible says. I mean, what do I know? Yeah. It's me saying, I don't know what Bible.
You've heard it at church. You've read the Bible yourself, or you?
Yeah.
So when you've read it, okay, I guess where we get, this is a whole nother episode. Old Testament, New Testament.
Yep.
Old Testament, God's agreement with the Jewish people.
Yep.
Very harsh, very performance based.
Yep.
Do this happens. Do that happens.
Yep.
New Testament, you are forgiven. Jesus has taken your sin away. Go and live life to the full. Go and love others, love God. It's not performance based. So if you read the Old Testament, New Testament sort of intermingled, you end up with a schizophrenic God. Whereas it's like, I can see how in the Old Testament, the harshness would be repelling.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I don't know that. I'm pretty sure that follows something like the normal path of parenting. Like, I don't know that that's any different from how, I mean, it's interesting that we choose this. This I've always found fascinating. It's interesting that we choose the word father for God.
Yeah.
It's not obvious to me that we would do that. Like, as in, why would you choose that relationship to have with God? And I think the reason we do that is because, okay, obviously God is unknowable. No word you can use can describe, and you're always failing. You're trying to envelop the divine in some finite word or conscious idea. But father was our best guess and our closest approximation, in the sense that the relationship with your father is, you know, or your parent more generally is somehow like the same kind of thing as what it would be like to be with a God, in the same way that your father's going to tell you off and chastise you if you do this is going to happen or whatever. But ultimately, okay, when you're young, that's going to happen. And then you're going to grow up and you're going to realize that, no, actually, I'm sacrificing myself for you because I love you. Like, it's something like what normal fatherhood or parenthood more generally would be. It's not that schizophrenic to me. Like, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, you need tough love sometimes, and you need someone to say, hey, there is hellstone and brimstone and all sorts of bad, and, you know, your wife's going to be turned to pure salt and whatever if you do these terrible things. But then once you understand that lesson and you know you're not doing that anymore because you realize it's just bad, then, and it's not good for anyone, then there's a more nuanced sense of, now let's be in communion, let's love, without the need for the harshness.
Yeah. What you're describing is the New Testament relationship a Christian would have with God.
Yes, and it's not that different. Okay, I mean, it's obviously very different, but it's something like a father's relationship with their children as they grow.
And that's why you want your kids to say grace. You want them to experience not being alone, maybe. I don't know, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
You know, I tell you what, Harry, this has been the best podcast ever. I reckon in a couple of months, we should do another one.
I would love that very much.
That'd be so good. And thank you, Harry, for being my friend for 15 years.
Yeah.
And thank you for being the sort of person I can have these conversations with.
100%. No, it's wonderful, Michael. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Let's do this again in a couple of months. But it's like, you and I are both, my mind is blown by some of the things you've said. Okay. So thank you so much, Harry.
Thank you, Michael.
Catch you next time.